everybody, it's Julie, Kansas City girl in a Colorado world. Today is Friday, May 7th, and this is Flosstube number 80. And it has been just around 2 weeks since my last video. And I have so much stitching to show you guys, like so much. I've been doing stuff and things. So first I have a previous finish, and I only have one. So in 2020, around this time last year, I only had the one finish. But don't worry, because next video I will have several more. But anyway, I think it was May 2nd of last year, I finished this tiny little thing. This is from Blackbird Designs Sewing Club. And this is called Summer Flocks. And this was a start and a finish in one day. And I think the linen is 30 count. I think it's a Nikki's Creation piece of linen. And the colors are mostly called for, or if I didn't have exactly the called for, I found something in Stash that was like very, very similar. So, you know, essentially like the called for colors. And I finished this as a cute little pillow. I think this trim I got at Joann's, and then I put like a fancy little pin in here. I can't remember where I got that exactly. But yeah, there's my previous finish. Really fun to stitch and really, really quick to stitch. So there's that. But I have some current finishes, and I'm really, really excited because one of them was totally unplanned, had no idea I was going to finish. So one thing I've been doing this year is I took a page from Erin at 2 Martini Stitcher. And what she does is she works on all of her projects that haven't been finished yet on their birthday, which is the day she started the project. So she keeps track of when she starts things, as do I. So for example, like if I start something on April 1st of 2020, then April 1st of 2021, I want to get that out and work on it at least once. And if you follow this method, then you'll work on all of your projects like at least once a year. It's a good opportunity also to like reevaluate, maybe to say, you know, oh my gosh, in the last year, I haven't like even had a desire to work on this, or you get it back out and like, I don't love this fabric, or, you know, whatever. It kind of just gives you a chance to like reevaluate all of your WIPs, your works in progress. So I've been trying to do that this year. Now I don't work on them exactly on their birthday, like, but in that month at least. So like, for example, in April, there were 3 projects that had a birthday. So I just made a point to work on all 3 of those at some point in April. Well, one of those projects was the Primitive Hair Mermaid of Salem Bay, which I had started a year ago. This was her market release last year, March of 2020. And I had gotten pretty far. I think I had stitched on this for like maybe a week straight at that point. I had all of the tail done and some of the, well, that's still part of the tail. But I had all of like the bottom, this was all done, and I had just started in here. And I always felt like this could be finished pretty quickly. I always felt like, you know, I should just get that out and finish it. But then I would get it out and I'd really like start looking and count up the stitches, and I was like, it's not as close as I think. I think there was like maybe 4,000 stitches left in it. Maybe a little less than that, but there was still a lot left. But anyway, it had its birthday, and I was like, okay, well, I need to get it out. And I got going, and then I was like, you know, I just really feel like I can finish this. So I did. I just like buckled down, stitched all day on a Saturday, and I finished this piece. And I did the beading, and I framed it. So this was, like I said, a surprise finish because I truly thought I was going to get it out and work on it for a day or two and then put it back away. I had no idea I was really going to finish it. So I'm super, super happy with how this turned out. I used all of the called for flosses except for the skin. I did take some liberties. The Primitive Hair has charted her with just like a basic ivory skin, and I just thought that was a missed opportunity. Like, she's a mermaid. Like, let's give her a funky color. Like, let's do something like, I debated making her green. Ultimately, I made her like a dusty purple. So, that was the only little change I made. Everything else is called for floss. And this linen is from the Primitive Hair. This is a printed linen. It's a 30 count linen. So one thing I do want to say about this pattern, if you buy this pattern and want to stitch it, it calls for, I think it's like maybe 5 colors of Gentle Arts, but not noted on the pattern is that you do need more than one skein of 2 of the colors. So this dusty green color is Mountain Mist. You definitely need a second skein of that. And then this bluish color, there's two blue colors in here. Oh wait, there's 3 colors you need 2 skeins of. So you need 2 of Mountain Mist. Freedom is the darker blue. You need 2 of that. And then the other blue is Blueberry, and you do need 2 of those. So I do wish that had been noted on the pattern because, of course, I would have just bought 2 at the time, but I didn't know. So, of course, then I ran out, and then I was in my stash trying to, like, match colors. And I think I did actually really good with matching. I don't think you can tell that I used 2 different dye lots or 2 different colors in here, but those 3 colors you do need a second skein. The lighter blue in her hair is Cornflower, and I was able to get her completely done with just the 1 skein, but I was on my last length of thread on that. So, like, you know, I probably cut like a 16 or 18 inch length of floss to use, and I was on the last length of that, and I had to use, I think, you know, just 2 of the 6 strands. So I ended up with 4 strands left. That's it. So if you had made a mistake and had to frog, or, you know, something happened, you might actually need a second skein on that as well. That one I cut really close. But regardless, it's gorgeous. It's well worth getting the called for flosses because they give a really great effect. The other thing I'll say are the beads in the tail. There was a bead pack released last year, but you cannot find it anywhere anymore. And she doesn't tell you in the pattern what beads to use. Like, it doesn't say go get this and this and this. So I had to just kind of squint and look at the pattern and kind of like figure it out for myself. So she clearly used some pearls, and I think the pearls I ended up with are bigger, just slightly bigger than the ones she used. And then she does use Swarovski bicones, which are those, these right here. And then she uses just like some basic seed beads. So she calls for, I mean, she doesn't tell you what to use, but it's 3 kinds of beads. I took some liberties and just went and found some that I liked. I do believe on the pattern that these Swarovski bicones are maybe like a silvery pewter color, and I went and got like a teal. I'll try to get in really close so you can see some of the beads. I went and got like a teal deep blue sea just because I thought it was pretty. And then I think for the little seed beads, it might call for like also a silvery. And I just went and got, oh here, there's more beads over here. I just went and found like another like pretty sea blue color. So I do think it's totally fine to take some liberties and just grab your own beads there. But that was another complaint I had about the pattern. So I love the Primitive Hair. love, 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 have stitched so many of her patterns. I've never had a problem with any of them before, but I did want to just point that out. This one really should have noted that you need 2 skeins of 3 of the colors, and probably, since the bead packs aren't available, should have told you like maybe what beads to go look for. But looks great. I think I want that to be my screen capture, so I needed that pick. Okay, so that was my surprise finish. Another finish I had that I had made a point that I wanted to finish was, but I have not had a chance to fully finish, is Leela's Studio Coffee Obsessed, which I'm stitching as a gift. And I did want to get this fully finished before this video, but I just couldn't quite get there. But I will show you next video the full finish. So I stitched this on 40 count linen that I dyed myself. I used mostly the called for colors. If I didn't have the exact color, I used something that looked like according to, you know, I just looked at the cover photo and grabbed something that looked like it matched. So essentially I used the called for colors. And I really love how this turned out. It's really cute. I'm kind of sad I have to give it away. Maybe someday I'll stitch it for myself. I love this design a lot. So that was another finish. And then I had one other finish. I have been stitching a series of patterns from the Primitive Hare that celebrate pagan holidays, of which there are 8. And you can get these patterns for free on her blog. And I've been trying to actually stitch them to coincide like with the solstice or with the holiday. So on May 1st, there was belting. So I got this out and stitched that. These stitch up really super fast. And like I said, they're free on her blog. I have 2 left. Most people just stitch them individually and make like little pillows or little ornaments. I had this like idea that I wanted to stitch mine in a wheel, like in a circle. So that's what I've been doing. And then I'm going to have to chart something for the center. This is a 28 or 30 count linen that I coffee tea dyed myself. So here's kind of like the layout of the piece. So like I said, I have 2 more left down at the bottom. This Beltane is the one I worked on this time. She charts these just with DMC, but I grabbed I just grabbed color and cottons basically. Actually, I think this time I grabbed Forbidden Fiber Company flosses that I had left over. The only change I made, I mean, I still stuck with the colors she called for, like, essentially, but I did change the skin tones because why not? And then the crowns she had charted as white, and I just made them silver and gold. So back when, I mean, this is an old project. I started it quite some time ago, but I do want to finish it this year because, like I said, I just have 2 holidays left. So I have Summer Solstice Letha coming up, and I love this one. This is probably my favorite one out of all the patterns. And then I have Lammas. I've already stitched Maven. So I have this one, Lammas, still to do. And then I'll have them all stitched, but I do have to stitch something in the center. I had an idea, you know, 2 years ago of what I wanted to do. Really finally got to looking and realized it wouldn't actually fit. Back to the drawing board. I have some ideas. Of what will go in the center to kind of tie this all together. So that was another little mini finish. And then I actually have fully finished something. So this was something I finished the stitching on probably a good month or so ago, maybe in March. But I've now actually gotten around to doing a fully finished. This was Fat Quarter Shop. It was a stitch along called Sew by Row by Lori Holt from Bee in My Bonnet. And I have finished this as a pillow. So this is a gift for my mom, who doesn't watch these videos, I don't believe. So I'm going to give it to her next week, but I don't think she'll see this. Now, it's not completely finished because I do still just need to sew together. I've got some pens holding this. So I just need to do like a blind stitch right here, and then it's actually finished. But I decided I was going to make this a soft wall hanging, and I did start doing that. And then I thought, this is a good like pillow size. And I decided just to make it a pillow. This is Lady Dot Creates Velveteen in the color Daffodil. And I thought that just went well with this. This is stitched on 36 count. Picture this plus Vesper. No. Zephyr. And the floss is Orifloss, a set, a Prim. It's Orifloss, and the set is something Prim. And I got it from Fat Quarter Shop. And this is mostly the whole pattern, but I left off one row at the bottom. So it was just a lot of stitching, and I just didn't have it in me. The bottom row that would have been down here was stacks of folded up fabric, and it was a lot of stitching. It was still like going to be 5,000 stitches, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm just done. We're just going to be done now. So there's my cute little pillow. So I just need to, like I said, just sew closed the bottom here, see? And then it will be completely done. So those were all of my finishes. So I'm just checking my notes to make sure that really was all my finishes. Okay, so what did I work on in the last 2 weeks? Well, I worked on a lot of things, actually. So the first thing I did was I got caught up on Modern Folk Embroidery 2021 Stitch Along. It's called The Fruits of Plenty. And I got April's section caught up. Now, of course, the May section has been released, and I haven't started that yet. But the May section is, in my opinion, it certainly appears to be the lightest section of stitching on this whole piece. So I'm kind of excited about that. I'm stitching mine on 40 count Fortnite fabrics in the color Caravan Tan, and I'm using 2 Valdani silks. They don't have names, they just have numbers like S151 and 0511. I think, actually I'm pretty sure those are the colors. It's a mossy green and a navy midnight blue. The blue, I believe, is called something like Deep Sea, and the green might be called something like Mossy Green, when I have seen it actually named instead of just a number. But anyway, this was the April section right here, and I had a lot of this done last video, but now I've actually got it done. And of course, I love it. It's just such a beautiful pattern, and I really just love how my colors are working. I think the pattern is so beautiful. You could really do like almost any colors and it would be great. So, you know, it's more the pattern than my color choice. But I do love my colors a lot. So much. And I get so many compliments on this when I show it, or when I post on Instagram with this. I do get, you know, just so many compliments on it. So I think a lot of you love it just as much as I do. The next thing I worked on, I had a new start. So I had gotten my Al Forest embroidery order, my first Al Forest embroidery order, which I showed you guys last video, and then I got a second order since then. But I was just dying to start one of these, so I started the Al Forest Baba Yaga kit. This kit comes with absolutely everything you need to stitch this. The only thing you need is some scissors. And if you don't stitch in hand, then you need like a hoop or a Q-snap. That is it. It comes with the floss, the fabric, the pattern, of course. It comes with a needle minder, and it comes with your needle. So all you need are scissors and something to hold your fabric. I love that because these are truly like grab and go for me. Like if I, not that I go a lot of places, but if I needed to go somewhere and I wanted to take something with me, like this is just easy. Like I don't have to think about it. I don't have to find the floss and find the fabric. It's like just literally grab the box, grab a pair of scissors, and you're good. So I started this and the kit is absolutely stunning and the floss is really beautiful. They use DMC and then they over dye it themselves. So it's like a DMC quality floss. So it doesn't knot or tangle any more than a DMC would on you. I actually got a lot of progress done on this, I think. Isn't it great? The flosses are just gorgeous. Just really gorgeous. So the inner part was stitching up really fast. Now the border is intense. There's a lot of stitching on that border. So I was feeling like I was like really knocking this out. And then I stopped and kind of looked at the border and I was like, oh, okay. You know, it's fun to stitch. I'm having a great time, but I'm not as, you know, close to done as I thought I might have been. But that's all right. I really, truly, really love this. The interesting thing about the Alforest floss, they're absolutely stunning. They're just variegated enough that, in my opinion, you have to do individual. You have to cross your floss. You have to cross each stitch individually. I hope that. Let me back it up. Okay, with variegated thread, you know, the general school of thought for purists is you cross each X individually as you go to get the full variegation. However, in flosses that aren't super heavily variegated, I will go like all the way across half stitch and then come back and do the top. Let me show you. I have, you know, I can show you right here. So like with this Coffee Obsessed, these are all variegated flosses, but I did not do individual X's on any of them. I just did half a stitch across and then came back and crossed my stitches. You can primarily, you know, really see that probably on this like gold part right here. If you can see, I still got a nice variegation going. I did it with the blue on the mugs as well. So there's still variegation and it still looks really good. But I did not do each X individually. I was able, because the variegation was so subtle, I was able to still stitch like the way I would with DMC. But with these threads, I feel like they're just variegated enough that you're really going to lose a lot of the pretty effect if you do that. So I do feel like you have to do the individual X's with this. And I think it's looking great. It does, sorry, I think there's like a shadow right there. It does make it take longer, you know, it obviously, like, so that's, you know, the drawback is takes a little longer to stitch. But the effect is very nice. And so these, like to show you the flosses on the spool, you might be able to better see what I mean. Like there's some brownish, there's some emeraldy green, and there's some mossy green in there. This color is so pretty. I love this color. But you see it's got like brown, peach, orange, reddish. So just to get that full effect, you have to cross them individually. I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to. But I do. So. All right. Then I worked on another whip birthday. So this was a piece I had started last year. And its birthday came around. And this is a pattern it is so special to me. Like this pattern is near and dear to my heart. This is Bendy Stitchy Rolodex Morning Sampler. And I just love the pattern. Like from the moment I saw it, I just adored this pattern, but it's extra special to me because I love Michelle Bendy Stitchy, the designer, and I love Carla Rolodex Stitches, who inspired this pattern and model stitched it. So I love working on it because I just think of both of them and they're both just the best. And my only regret about this is I only had one day to work on it because I had a lot going on. So I was just sad I couldn't work on it longer and get more done. I'm stitching this on 40 count Picture This Plus in the color Mire, which is a really cool color that I don't see people use very often. It's kind of a spooky, creepy color, and I really love it. It's like a green and purple. And I'm using color and cotton flosses. Some of the called for and some substitutes just because I didn't have the color. So basically what I got done this time, I mean, I still got a lot done for like, I think I worked on it maybe a day and a half. I did all of this bottom border and I did all of this green. I already had like the gate and everything done. So basically I did the border and some of this grass over here. Oh, sorry, I was out of frame. And I added a needle minder because it made me think of both of them. So this needle minder was from my friend Jen, Jasmine Ravenclaw. And it says the 13 Black Beak Coven. And this is from the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, of which Michelle and Carla are huge fans. And so I went and grabbed that needle minder in honor of my two friends. And someday I want to get back to this. Someday soon. Someday very soon, hopefully. Okay, so then I worked on Dark Queen of the Sea Stitch Along from Autumn Lane Stitchery. Now, some of you out there might be thinking, you never did show that in April, did you? Or in March? And you would be right. Because here's what happened. Okay. Here's what happened. The March section. The March section of this stitch along was very controversial. It was controversial. So here's what the March section was. It was these borders, this crown, and this coral. Really small. Really small section. Would have taken maybe a day or two to stitch. And I was gonna stitch it. And then I just like didn't quite get to it. And then people started talking about how like they weren't sure about the triangle borders. Like they weren't sure if they were gonna do it. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna trust the designer. Like I'm gonna do it. And then I just didn't quite get around to it. And then the more I kept looking at it, I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's fine, but I was like, you know what? I want to see more of the pattern. I'm going to just wait. I'm just going to hold off. It's a tiny section anyway. I'll go stitch it later. No big deal. So then the April section came out and it was this trident with the coral. This is May's section that just came out. This part right here. So like this came out and I was like, yeah, I don't know about those borders. They're okay. I don't know if I'm in love with them. And then I saw somebody who didn't stitch the March section at all. So hadn't stitched this, but did stitch this. And it actually looked really great, like without them. So you still have like this circle, this magic swirl squid ink circle. It looked really, really good without these little triangles. So I think I'm going to just hold off on that and I'm just going to keep going with her and then decide. She is going to be bottom heavy. If she's bottom heavy and I think I need something up here, I'll do it later. So, and this is May's section, her tentacles down here. that just came out. The colors are amazing. I'm a little upset about the amount of stitching in this section. I think the design is great. I think it's going to look amazing, but just my rough estimate of this section, it's over 5,000 stitches, and that's a lot for 1 month. So I'm upset about the amount of stitching in this section, but I'm not upset about the design. Anyway, I unfortunately have not quite finished April, but it's on the docket to do soon. So I'm going to try to get to finish April and then get started on May. So here is where mine is at. So as you can see, I do not have the triangles up here, but I did get the trident started, and I think like she's looking okay without it for now. This is the called for fabric. I'm using all of the called for colors except for the hair. I did a conversion on her hair. She's gorgeous. So I just have for April, to finish April, I just have to do the rest of the trident and a couple pieces of coral. I really don't have very much left on the April section, but like I said, the May section is so much stitching. But I am determined that I will not fall too far behind on this. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't think I'm going to get May done this month, but I think that's okay. I want to at least like get going on it. And then I'm guessing we're going to do something like June will be the rest of these tentacles, and then July will be more of these tentacles. So I'm guessing like even if I don't get May done, maybe I can kind of catch up with those smaller sections. So it's still an absolutely beautiful design. I'm not complaining about the border at the top. I'm just not sure mine's gonna need it. And honestly, like that's gonna save me some stitching, so I'm not upset about it. Okay, what did I work on next? Ooh, I had another new start. I'm actually really excited about this one too. I love the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, but they're generally just not quite my style. I appreciate their design, I appreciate their style, but I'm usually like, that's cute, but like would I put that up in my house? I don't know. So I don't tend to get a lot of their patterns, but every so often one will come out that I'm like, yep, I would put that up in my house. And they came out with the Cozy Cafe Club, which is a year-long stitch-along, and they've got 2 sections out so far. And I think for, you know, like teas and coffees and pastries, I think that really lends itself to the Frosted Pumpkin style. And so I decided I did want to do this one because it's just adorable. So I got a little start. I had a few issues, nothing to do with the pattern, more my choices. So I had this 20 count Ada, which, you know, ends up being equivalent to like a 40 count linen. And so I decided, you know what, this would look so cute. I think this would look so cute on this gray petty point Zweigart 20 count Ada. So I got 1 strand of floss and got going, and I did not like the coverage at all. So even though this should be equivalent to a 40 count, it just did not feel like the coverage you would get with 40 count. So I did have to go back and start stitching with 2 strands, and I do like the coverage with 2 strands. I'm very happy with the coverage. However, 2 strands is tight on this. So 1 strand is not enough, but 2 strands is tight. And so it just kind of was hurting my hand because I was really having to like fight the floss to get it through. But I do like the coverage. I'm happy with that. So that was one issue I had. And then my other issue is that I am going to rip out this scallop border and pick a different color. On my fabric, that is just too yellow. Now, on theirs, it looks white, right? Like the color is ecru and 738. And on the tone of their fabric, it has an effect like it's a white scallop border. But on mine, it is yellow. And that's just because of my fabric. So I'm going to rip that out, and I'm probably going to switch it to like a 712, like a really, really super light gray, like almost white. And I think I'll be happier with that. And I didn't get too much of that stitched in before I decided that wasn't working for me. So there's my little start on that. They're small. Each month is a small section. I think they're like they're smaller than like 50 by 50 stitches. And on 40 count, look how tiny. Like, look how wee these are. They're so tiny. They're so little. So, yeah. So that'll actually stitch up really fast. But I had to take a break because, why? Why did I have to take a break? Like, I was having so much fun stitching that. Well, I had to take a break because my Owl Forest Alice in Wonderland floss arrived, and I had to start this as soon as I could. So, okay, so Owl Forest Embroidery is a company in Russia, and my last order from them took like 3.5 weeks to arrive, which that's fine. No complaints. I'm not complaining about that. They actually ship super fast. Like I ordered and they shipped like the next day, but then it took 3.5 weeks. Not their fault. I've had people say that last year, like in the midst of the pandemic and then in the midst of like the holiday stuff, that their orders took, I think someone said a couple months to get their order. So I just want to let y'all know, like my experience, I don't think that is going to be the case now. So my order took 3.5 weeks. And then they announced the Alice in Wonderland mystery stitch along, and I was like, I'm in, sold. And I ordered the floss for that, and it shipped really quickly. And then I was like, now we wait, let's see. Well, it got here in exactly 2 weeks. So even faster than I expected or hoped. I was just really hoping I got it by the end of May so I could get going and get caught up. This mystery stitch along is going to be quite sizable. It's going to last the whole year, and it's going to come out in pieces every 2 weeks. And so I wanted to get going. I didn't want to fall too far behind. So I'm really excited that I got my floss so fast. Part 2 just came out today. I am almost done with part 1. So again, really excited about that. Here is a very blurry picture of what the layout and general like colors of the stitch along is going to be. It's going to be square shaped. Obviously you're not supposed to be able to really tell what it is because it's a mystery. So we started in the center. So my floss got here and I started right away. The floss is stunning. It's so beautiful. I expected no less. I am using 40 count vintage country mocha. They actually do call for vintage country mocha, but they're doing theirs on 32 count with 2 strands. But I got the floss pack for 40 count with 1 strand. So it was a little cheaper because I got less floss. But the color is the same, and mine will just be smaller than the actual, model of it. But here is where I'm at on part 1. I've got quite a bit done. All that's left is just this border here, and then it mirrors over here. Let me see, do I have a picture of it? No, well, here, I'll hold it back here because it's a free pattern, by the way. You can't really see it, but this is what I have left. So if you go to the Owl Forest website, It's in Russian, but there's, you can click to change it to English. And then you're going to go to the tab that says charts. And then it'll say printed charts, PDF charts, free charts. So click on free charts and it's right there at the top. And it is a free stitch along, and just every 2 weeks you need to go back and get like the next part and download it. So like I said, part 2 just came out today. So my plans for this weekend are to catch up on part 1 and then start in on part 2. This needle minder, both of these needle minders are from It's Charm School on Etsy. This one says bookworm, and then this is my Ort catcher. It attaches right there, and you can throw in your loose threads as you go. And this is stitching up really beautifully, and I'm really excited to see how this goes the rest of the year. I have one more work in progress to show you, but I'm going to just like jump a little bit ahead and show you stash acquisitions, because I am keeping my Alice in Wonderland stitch along in this gorgeous project bag. So my friend Jen, she is Jasmine Ravenclaw on Instagram. She makes project bags and bags, and she will make you one if you like. She does her own, or you can like let her know what kind of fabric you want and she can source it for you, or you can send her a certain fabric and she can make you something. So she started making these project bags, and they're so nice. First of all, they're huge, which I appreciate. So they comfortably fit an 11 by 11 loaded up Q-snap. And then they have these like faux leather. So they're really, really well made. Sturdy, large, and pretty. And there's another pocket. So you get this extra pocket, which is super handy. And she sent me this as a gift because she was so excited about the Alice in Wonderland Alfora stitch along, and she I posted that I was going to do it, and she was really excited because she's going to do it too. And she had this fabric, and this fabric is gorgeous. Well, here on the back, you can see more of it. And so she said, I'm going to send you, she said, don't buy a project bag for this project. I'm going to send you something. So she sent me this beautiful project bag. I am so excited because, like I said, it comfortably fits this Q-snap, and I want to keep up with this stitch along through the year. So I'm excited that I can keep this all together. I'm probably just going to keep it loaded up on the Q-snap, and like, so the Q-snap is in there. And it's perfect. So I'm probably just going to keep it loaded on the Q-snap and like never take it off. And then every 2 weeks I can work on this stitch along. So I'm very excited about that. And if you want a bag like that, just go check out her Instagram account. Again, she's just on Instagram as far as I know. And she's called Jasmine Ravenclaw. Okay, my last, I told you there was a lot of stitching. I was not kidding. Like, I told you guys that I stitch a lot. My last thing, so that Coffee Obsessed project had been my work lunch. I can't talk. My work lunch project. And then so since I finished it, I was finally able to start a new project for work. And I had been wanting to stitch this forever, but I was on a no start freeze. And so then in April, when I was finally allowed to start things, I wanted to start this, but I needed to finish Coffee Obsessed first, which ended up taking me a whole month. It took me forever to stitch that. So I finally got to start. Abby Top Knot Stitcher, be my boo. She released this around Valentine's Day. It's super small. It's going to stitch really, really, really fast. I actually think I'm going to be able to finish this in like I don't know, I probably need like 2 days and then I'll be able to, it'll be done. I bought the Dinky Dice thread pack. It just calls for 4 Dinky Dice. So I bought that from Abby at Top Knot. The pattern was just a PDF download. So I got the Dinky Dice, I bought the pattern, and then I just grabbed some fabric from Stash that I thought would kind of work with those colors. So I went a little, I got adventurous. So this is 28 count, picture this plus flapper crystal. So it's got sparkles in it. And this was just 1 day of stitching. I've already got the ghost almost done. And then after that, there's really not that much. Just the little border and the words. So it should stitch up really, really fast. I believe Rocio from Kokohama Stitchery, I think she stitched this in 1 day, like back when Abby first released it. So I'm hoping to get this done this weekend. Okay, so that was all my stitching. I do have just a little bit of haul, not a lot. I've been pretty good, actually, all things considered. So I had to order some linen from 123 Stitch. I actually ordered the 40 count vintage country mocha for the Alice in Wonderland project. So I grabbed that. I got that on 123 Stitch. And I was like, I can't just order a piece of fabric. Like, I need to like put something else in this order. So I grabbed this pattern that keeps catching my eye. This is the Scarlet House Dutch sampler. It looks like most people, you probably can't read this down here. Most people have been saying CC Smit, but apparently this is a Dutch name and it's, I'm not sure this is right. It's something like Kessia or Cassia is how you actually say that. So when I saw this pattern, I think it was released for Expo. That might be a lie. This says 2019. I still feel like it just came out. Maybe it was like a club kit or like a retreat piece and then she finally released it. Anyway, whatever. I saw this pattern and I was like, oh, pretty neat, pretty cool, whatever. It's not like a need right now for me. And then I've seen 2 people stitching it. I don't think either one's finished it, but like they've gotten a lot of progress done on it. And when they actually show it like on Flosstube, it is so beautiful. It is just, this photo is beautiful, but it doesn't even do it justice. So when I've seen people actually like hold this up and show it, I've just been like, oh. So I was like, yeah, I'm getting that. Yeah, I'm going to do it. And it actually seems like, it seems kind of small. Like, I mean, it's 185 by 145, which isn't really small, but it seems like it's stitching up really fast for people. So I'm really excited about that. Like I said, even better in motion than what you see there. So I went to the thrift store down the street from me, and because I had some clothes to drop off, some donations. And I went in and just took a little look-see. I usually, or maybe never, find stitching at this one. Maybe I found something here and there, but I don't really ever see stitching stuff at this particular thrift store. But I actually found a little bit. The first thing I found, I was actually kind of surprised, was a little Thomas Kincaid Disney Dreams kit. It is not probably like the more sought after ones, and I've actually stitched this already, but it's so little and cute. And it was like $1, so originally it was only $2.99. But I mean, I couldn't leave that there, so I grabbed that. And then I found these Santa patterns. These are old leisure arts. I have no idea. I don't know that these would be hard to find. Maybe these are quite easy to find, but I thought they were really pretty. It's a set of 3 Santas. And the first booklet is just this one. It's called The Enchanted Sleigh, Book 1. But then Book 2 has its Noble Companions, and Book 2 has 2 patterns. And so I thought this one was gorgeous, and I really love this one. This one, the first one, like, is fine. It's pretty, but these 2 really caught my eye. I don't know if or when I will stitch those, but they're really pretty. They're not small, but they're not insanely large. 115 by 138. And, you know, DMC, obviously. So yeah, that was my thrift store acquisitions. I was really just surprised to find stitching stuff at all. I made an order with Top Knot, Abby at Top Knot Stitcher, because she was having like a 10% off or a 15% off sale. So I was like, oh, let me just go see what catches my eye. So I got the Blackbird Souvenirs of Summer book, just reprinted. Of course, I needed it. And then I grabbed some Barbara Anna patterns. So I got Dreaming of Klimt. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this one. I love this one. It's not a small amount of stitching, but it is gorgeous, especially if you love Klimt. And then I grabbed, this one came out a while ago and I just like had somehow never picked it up. So I grabbed Forest Queen. So that was my order from Top Knot. And then I got my Owl Forest order. So like I said, I got my floss for Alice in Wonderland. But of course I like didn't just order that. I mean, I'm shipping all this stuff from Russia. Like I might as well make it worth their time. So I ordered a lot of stuff. So I was so impressed with their kits from before. And there were a couple that I almost got, but then I didn't. So like, I went back and got them. So I got Father Mushroom, which I'm like obsessed with this. I might start this next, honestly. And then I got, this one's bigger. This is Enchanted Forest. It's a good size, but it's got some beautiful little motifs in there. Sorry, I feel like I was shaking that. I didn't mean to be shaky, but anyway, there's that. So I got those, and then I got floss for, I bought this pattern ages ago. So I actually just bought the floss pack. This is the Queen of Hearts. And so I got the floss pack for her. So I can finally get around to stitching her. She did come as a kit at one point, but now that's been sold out forever. But you can buy the PDF and you can buy the floss. And then I did get this PDF and the floss pack. And this one is called Hedgehog Meadow, which is just so cute. It didn't come as a kit, but I got the floss pack for that. Very cute. So like I talked about last time, for me, shopping on this website, I don't know what anything costs. Like, I still don't know what anything costs. It's all like in ruples, and those aren't like equivalent to dollars. Like, or even like ballpark, you know, like if something's like in Canadian dollars, I kind of have like a ballpark of US dollars. But at Owl Forest, everything's like, it's like 1,200. I don't know what that means. You know, like I don't know what anything costs. So I just like throw stuff in my cart, and then it's like, you go to your cart and you're like, cool, maybe now it'll like convert for me, but it doesn't. And then the next thing you know, you're like on PayPal, and you're like, okay, cool. Well, like I'm on PayPal. Now PayPal will tell me what it costs, but PayPal didn't tell me either. And it was like, buy now. And I was like, sure, I guess. And so then finally I knew what it cost, and it was fine. Like it was fine. But it's just funny because like I still know what anything costs that I bought. Like I genuinely, I bought so much like that the total, I don't know how to break it down. So I don't know what this stuff costs. I can tell you what these two cost. Someone sent me a message after I had placed that second Owl Forest order, and they said, hey, just so you know, all of the PDFs at Owl Forest are 20% off right now. So I was like, gosh, there were a couple patterns I didn't get that I kind of wanted. So I went back and I got two patterns. So I got this one, which is fly. I don't know how to say this, honestly. Agarix or agarix mushrooms. And then I got this one, which I had overlooked because I just wasn't looking for like Christmas. This is Silver Hoof Christmas, and it is stunning. So I can tell you that these two PDFs at 20% off came to $7. So I don't think their PDFs are expensive at all. I couldn't tell you about the floss and all that, but I feel like, I don't know exactly what things cost, but I feel like they're pretty cheap for what you get. And shipping was like $6 maybe. Like shipping is not bad. So I'm just throwing that out there. Okay, that is all of my haul. That's it. So that's all the stitching stuff. And now I want to talk to you about books, because that's what I do. I talk about stitching and then I talk about books. So I am going to talk about books now. I'm not going to talk about stitching anymore. So if you are not interested in book talk, totally understand. I'll see you next time. But I do have a couple books to talk about. So I read, since my last video, I've read 4 books, and I have some thoughts. However, I really am going to have trouble articulating some of these thoughts without doing lots of spoilers. And so I'm going to try not to do spoilers. So we'll see how this goes. Okay. So the first book I read, it actually was a physical copy of the book, but I have since donated it to the thrift store. So I don't have it anymore. So I will insert a picture of it. But I read the 4th and final book in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. And the 4th book is called Winter. And here's what it looks like. So the first book is called Cinder. The second book is called Scarlet. And the third book is called Cress. And then Winter is the 4th and final book in this series. So this is a young adult sci-fi fantasy. And it is, they're all 4 books are loosely inspired by fairy tales. So the first book, Cinder, of course, is Cinderella. The second book, Scarlet, is Red Riding Hood. And the third book, Cress, is a Rapunzel retelling. And the 4th book, Winter, is a Snow White inspired retelling. But they're very, very loosely and very vaguely, you know, based on those fairy tales. They're certainly not at all like just a Cinderella retelling. It's just that the main characters are kind of you know, will remind you of those characters a little bit, but they're placed in totally different situations. So it's a sci-fi story where it's definitely set in the future, and the moon, like the Earth's moon, has been colonized by an alien species, basically, and they're called lunars. And they live on the moon, and they are humanoid, but they have powers that, you know, obviously people on Earth don't have. So lunars have the power, some of them have power to manipulate your mind and your body. Some of them don't. Some of them, for whatever reason, are born without power, and they're just called shells, and they're basically like humans. There are people who are more powerful than others, and they're called thaumaturges. I'm not sure actually how to pronounce that word. Anyway, so these people live on the moon, and when they first like colonized and came to be, like, things were peaceful, there was cooperation. Earth actually helped them build, you know, their city and their colony. But at some point, like, things just went sour and went bad, and now Earth and Lunar are basically at war. And that's kind of like where the story starts. And so the again, it's hard to talk about a fourth book in a series without spoilers, but basically this is about this group, this ragtag group of basically children. They're 16, 17, 18 years old, taking on the people on the moon, who are led by an evil queen. She is evil. Her name is Lavana. I lost it for a second. Her name is, so Queen Lavana. She's evil. Okay, so she's the big bad in the series. And then in the fourth and final book, you know, can they defeat the big bad evil queen? So I didn't love this series. It's not terrible. For me, it was very just run-of-the-mill, kind of mediocre. They were all just kind of okay for me. Easy to read, though. Very, very, like, written in a way that's really easy to read. So I just kept going. And I already had all 4 books, so I was like, I'm just gonna finish the series. I think if I didn't, like, own all 4 books going in, I might not have ever gotten around to, like, picking up the last few, I'll be honest. But because I had them in my possession, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna see it through. And again, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's just not great for me. Some people really, really, really love this series. I believe Michelle Bendy Stitchy really loved this series. I just found it it was a little juvenile for me. Now, to be fair, this is young adult sci-fi fantasy. It is written for young adults, but it really feels that way for me. I read a lot of young adult fantasy, and some of it feels very young, and some of it actually feels like, you know, this could have, why is this even categorized as young adult? This could just be adult fantasy fiction. So, you know, some of it reads a little more mature. This one definitely reads more juvenile, and that's okay. That just meant for me, it was just okay. It wasn't great. But like your 15 or 16-year-old child would probably love this series. And it's written fine. The writing is easy to read. It's very, you know, fast-paced. And it's overall like a pretty fun ride. I had a couple of issues with the series that really, really came to light in the 4th book. So the 4th book was too long. Like, just straight up, it was too long. It was 820 pages long. Like, the first book was like 410 pages, you know, somewhere around there, like 400 something pages, you know. The other ones were maybe like 450 pages. So those were already like pretty long for young adult. 820 pages, it's too long. It needed to be 300 less pages. So that was the first problem. It was too long. It was still easy to read, but it did not need to be that long. There was a lot of stuff that just, why? Like, why are we doing this? What is this? Why are we like, there were like all these side quests. Why? I'm not sure. One thing, I was watching someone else talk about this series and they kind of pointed it out and I was like, oh, yes. It's it's like a super straight series. Like all the romance is straight, which is, that happens. I'm not saying you just have to throw in like gay romance, but it was just weird that like there is no mention of anyone, even like a side character. Like there is no mention in this book in this whole 4 books of anyone who's not straight. So that's just a little bit like, I think, it's an interesting take, like, and not really realistic, especially in a society that's probably like 300 years ahead of us, when like, I imagine like this would be even less of a big deal than it is now. So I don't know. That was just a little odd. And then the other thing is the series feels also very, very white. And if you've read this book, you're going, no, wait, that doesn't make sense. Because like, there's an Asian character and there's a black character. And it's like, yeah, sort of. But like, let's back this up. So the series starts in a new version of China, right? It's in New Beijing. There's been like all these world wars and countries aren't quite like what they were. You know, things have like boundaries and territories have been redrawn. So, you know, you're in this part of the world. And there are like things that if you are an observant reader, you go like, oh yeah, like this is Asian. Like, okay, like the clothing sounds Asian. Some of the features sound Asian. But I don't think it's really ever explicitly stated. And so if you look at like fan art for this series, people make these characters that are clearly Asian descent, they make them white, like in the fan art. And that's because I think the author just really wasn't clear enough on that. So it's kind of, it's not entire. I'm not like totally criticizing Marissa Meyer. She actually did try to get some diversity in her book, but I just don't think she was quite clear enough. It's a little bit ambiguous. And so in like official art for the series, Cinder is definitely a little bit Asian looking, and Kai, the male love interest, the emperor, is a little bit Asian looking, but it's still like a little ambiguous. But in fan art, like people just make them white. And I think that again is just because maybe things just weren't quite clear enough. And maybe she's thinking like, hey, this is like 300 years from now. It's a little bit like post-racial, like people are more mixed and blended. Maybe that was her goal. I don't know. And then everyone else in this series is clearly white, like white. And then in the 4th book, Winter, the main character, Winter, is dark-skinned. She's not an earthen, she's a lunar. So she's not black, but she is dark-skinned. But again, it's just like a little bit like weird and ambiguous. And I also saw fan art of Winter where she was just like a white girl with a tan. So I don't know. That's not like to say that every book has to like be more diverse or include more, you know, cultures and skin tones and all that. It's just something I noticed. It's just something I just wanted to kind of throw out there, that this book felt very white and very straight and juvenile for me. So that doesn't mean I hated it. It just means it continued to be just kind of middle of the road for me. The big bad, Queen Levana. she honestly, I think, brought the books down for me the most. She was just like such a cardboard cutout evil villain. In this book, like, Marissa Meyer, like, kind of tries to, like, give her a little bit of humanity, or kind of, like, maybe, like, let you see, like, how she became the way she became. But, I mean, like, I found her completely unbelievable. Like, the other character, like, the main characters, the good guys, I liked all of those characters. Like, their personalities, everything. Like, they were well-rounded, fleshed out characters. Who seemed more real. They seemed real. Queen Lavanna never seemed real. She just never seemed like a real person. Like, you're like, nobody would act like this. Nobody does this. Like, and I think that really just totally crippled the series for me. And it was this unsettled feeling I had through all 4 books where I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it with her. I bought everything else. I just didn't buy it with her. So that was a big flaw for me. I didn't think the villain really made sense in the story. So let me see. Do I have anything else I wanted to say about this? The last thing I wanted to say is, specifically in book 4, Winter, there was a really odd depiction of mental illness through the entire book, and I really don't understand what or why that was about. So Winter, the main character, is a Lunar who has this magical gift, but she chooses not to use it because primarily people use this gift to control other people, and she thinks morally that is wrong. Great, I'm with you, girl. So she just like refuses to use her gift at all. And that literally breaks her mind. It makes her hallucinate. Like, she has like command hallucinations, like visceral hallucinations. She thinks the walls are bleeding. She thinks, like, it's super weird. And why? Like, why? I don't understand, like, why it even needed to be in the book. It, like, literally makes no sense. Like, why couldn't she just be like, I don't use my magic because I think it's wrong to control people, and, like, that's that. Like, why does it have to make her, like, mentally ill? It's such a weird portrayal. And then, like, it's through the entire book, and the other characters, like, just literally call her crazy the whole book. They're like, hey, crazy pants. Like, come on, let's go. And, like, they're really, like, mean to her. It's just bizarre. It's weird. I don't get it. I don't know why that had to be there. So I guess, like, that's just some things, like, to be aware of if those are things that would really bother you. I read a few reviews, and I didn't see anyone really mention, like, the depiction and portrayal of mental illness in this book, but I found it, like, pretty offensive, and I don't know why that needed to be there. So those are my thoughts about the Lunar Chronicles. Basically, I'm just glad I'm done. I would rate the overall series like 3 out of 5 stars. It's not bad. It's just not good enough for me. But it is extremely popular. And if you loved that series, that's cool. Like, we don't all feel the same way about things, you know? Like, you probably really didn't love some of the things I really loved. So it's all good. I'm just glad I'm done. I'm glad I'm done. So then the next thing I read was a super, super, super popular series that I've been meaning to read for like a good year now. And I finally got around to it. I read From Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout. I will insert a picture of the cover here. So this book, there's now 3 books. The 3rd book just came out. I've only read the first. I will be continuing the series. So this book is always recommended for people who love Sarah J. Maas. So like the Throne of Glass series or the Court of Thorn and Roses series. After you finish those, or you finish like the most recent book and you're like, I don't want to leave that world. I loved it. Like, what else can I read? Like, what is there that has the same feel? And everybody always says, you need to read From Blood and Ash. So it's been like on my radar for a while, and I finally was like, okay, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. Because like the third book just came out, and I was like, okay, like I'm going to read it so then I can read all three, you know? I don't think the third book is the end. I think there might be 5 books total, but regardless, I was finally ready to read this series. And it definitely gets mixed reviews. Like, people are like, love it, obsessed. And then there are people that are like, I did not like that, like, at all. That was total trash. So I really went into it like not knowing how I was gonna feel about it. Like, I really heard such mixed reviews, but it is an adult fantasy. And Jennifer, I think it's Jennifer L. Armentrout, she writes romance, and she actually usually writes not fantasy, just romance. And I saw something somewhere, like a little intro or something, where she said, maybe it was at the beginning of the book, she said she just wanted to kind of try something new. Like, she had this idea and she like pitched it to her publishers, and they were like, sure, go for it. Like, go for it. Go ahead. And she was like, I kind of want to write a vampire book. And they were like, okay, whatever. So it was like new for her too, I believe. Because I don't think this is a genre she's usually like writing in. But it is a vampire werewolf story. However, you don't really know that right off the jump. It's especially the werewolf part. You don't know that till like, this is a minor spoiler, but I think it's like pretty general knowledge in the synopsis. So I'm sorry if anyone's like, what? But you don't get to meet the werewolves till like towards the very end. But I do believe like the book is marketed and told as like, hey, there's vampires and werewolves in this story. Like, just a heads up. But so the book starts off with the main character. Her name is Poppy. She is the maiden. So she's like a chosen religious, like, special figure in this society. You never actually, I don't believe, quite learn why she's the maiden or how they knew when she was born that she was like this chosen one, but somehow or other, like, she's born and people know, like, she is the maiden. She is revered. She is special. She needs to be protected. She has a role to play. And so Poppy is in seclusion her entire life. I think she's like 18 or 19 years old. And she has, she's completely isolated. She is under the protection of like a duke and duchess, and she lives in their castle, and she is not allowed to like leave her private chambers without a full veil. So she, nobody is allowed to like look upon her. This is not a spoiler, like, this is all like, you know, this like immediately. So she is just completely secluded, and basically like locked away in the tower, basically. A couple of people are allowed to see her without her veil. So she has like, you know, her 2 personal guards, the Duke and Duchess. And then there is, she has 1 companion. So like, someone is literally chosen to be like her best friend, when they're like children. And so she's grown up with her companion, Tawny. And those are the only people who know what she looks like. Anytime she's out of her room, she's in the veil. And so she's feeling a little bit, you know, conflicted about her future, because her life kind of sucks. Like, she's locked away. She doesn't get to talk to anybody. Like, the maiden has to be like this picture of virtue and innocence. So she can't talk to anybody. She can't touch anybody. She can't interact with people. When she is required like to be in public in her veil, she's not allowed to speak to people. So just like she's lonely and unhappy. And then the main love interest enters into the equation, and through a series of events he gets assigned to be her personal guard, and then the story, you know, kind of goes from there. Hard to talk about that without spoilers, but the book starts off slow. It wasn't that it was bad, but like nothing really happens for like the first 50%. You're just kind of getting to know Poppy. You're getting to know Hawk. You're getting to know the world. I did like the way the author kind of like dropped you right in, and you had to like learn as you go. Like, she didn't start the book and be like, here's the magical backstory, here's the history. She just kind of drops you into it, and then through the next like 50%, you kind of learn about like what this world is and how magic works and how things work in this world. You don't even explicitly like realize what the vampires are until like you start to get little tidbits, and then you start to put it together. So I thought it was an interesting way to build up the world, but it was a little bit of a slog for the first half just because nothing was happening. But then after like about the 50-60% mark, the story finally like really gets going. And I had heard that. I had heard people say, hey, it's kind of like, it's a really slow start, stick with it. Like, it gets so wild. Like, by the end, it's like a total ride. You're like not gonna believe it. So I did know that. I was like, you know, I heard it starts slow. Keep going, keep going. And I didn't hate it. It just was sort of like, hey, like nothing's happening. What's going on? And then of course, like things just like boom, 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 boom. Things really start happening. There's, you know, the romance picks up. It gets super steamy. And then there's like a betrayal, and all these secrets come to light, and things are not what they seem, and it ends like with you like just being like, holy crap, here we go. So I'm actually really excited to read the second and third books, which I've heard get even more bananas than the first one. I'm excited to read the rest. I ended up liking it a lot. It's also something I went into with like pretty low expectations, and I like a good like trashy, cheesy romance novel, you know, like I like that kind of stuff. So I understand why some people would be like, this book is not great. Like, no, it's not, but it's fun. It's a good time. Like, I'm good with it. I do want to say, just like a little bit of like a warning for people who might have been interested in this book, that you should know that there is abuse in this book. Poppy is abused by people who are her guardians, basically. I don't want to get spoilery, but like Poppy does get her vengeance in this book. So anyway, if that's something like there's physical abuse, not sexual, but there is physical abuse. So if that's something that you would not want to read about, just know that going in. But I'm excited. I'm excited to read the next one. And if you are interested in fantasy romance, and especially if you like Sarah J. Maas, I do agree. If you like her books, I think you would like this series a lot. All right, the next thing I read was a new book. This just came out like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. This is called House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. And this was an impulse purchase at Target. And I was like, you know, I always buy books and then they just sit around forever before I finally get around to reading them. And I was like, I want to make a point to like actually like try to read more of these books that I buy, like in a timely manner. So this book, this is a young adult fantasy. And this book was intriguing to me because it just sounds like dark and creepy. So like here, the synopsis, and I'll just read a little bit, not the whole thing. Iris Hollow and her two older sisters are unquestionably strange. As children, they disappeared on a Scottish city street, only to return a month later with no memory of what had happened to them or where they'd been. More troubling, their appearance began to change. Their blue eyes were now black, their dark hair now white. And as they grew older, odd, eerie occurrences seemed to follow them in their wake. People find them disturbingly intoxicating, unbearably beautiful, and inexplicably dangerous. I thought that sounded like goth and creepy and really interesting. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and pick this up. And then I started it a couple days later. It's a really short book. It's only like 280 pages, something like that. Yeah, like 290. It's 292 pages. So under 300 pages. I decided I've always wanted to like start and finish a book in one day. I never do that, but like I know people who do, and I was like, I want to be that person. So like on a Saturday, I read this whole book in one day, which was super duper fun. I was able to do it because it's a short book, and like the font is like, it's not like a dense tight font. It was quick to read. But it was actually really fun to challenge myself in that way. But I really liked this book a lot. It is, it has like a dark fairy tale vibe. The characters are really, really interesting. There's essentially a mystery that the main character is trying to solve, and you are kind of just along with her, like getting, figuring out, unraveling little threads, figuring things out, but it doesn't end, you still don't see it coming. Like there's a twist that you're like, whoa, what? Holy crap. It's super dark and creepy. The writing is really pretty. Like she is a lyrical writer. It's not too weird though, like, but it's pretty. It's like a poetic kind of way of writing. She describes things really interestingly, like, the metaphors and like comparisons that she comes up with are really nice. So I really enjoyed the writing. It was a great book. I actually liked it a lot. However, what I will say is it left me very quickly. So like I read it, I rated it 5 stars. I loved it. But then like 2 days later, like I was like, oh yeah, I read that book. Like, oh yeah. Like it just like immediately was like gone. Not that I forgot what happened, but just like it didn't stay with me. Like some books, ooh, we're getting a package from UPS. I was going to say the dog's going to start barking, and I realized, no, he's not, because he's not here. Anyway, there are some books that I finish reading, and I just can't stop thinking about them. Like, for a few days, they're kind of like playing in my mind, and I'm thinking about it. This was a book that kind of left me right away. So I do think I might have been a little hasty with the 5-star review. I'm considering going back and changing it to 4 stars, but I mean, I did like it. I really liked it. It's probably like a 4.5-star book for me. But if you see this and you're intrigued by this premise, like I think you should check this out. And if you have ever read The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, and if you liked that book, I think you would like this book. They have the same vibe, and some people hated The Hazelwood. I loved it, but some people hated it. So just a fair warning, if that's like not your kind of style, you might not like it. But if that is something, you will. So like this lady says, it's a dark, deliciously twisted novel. Agreed. Dark and delicious. It hums with malice and mystery. Yep, Oh, intoxicating and gorgeously grotesque. Fever dream. Yep. Oh, that does remind me. I did want to say one thing about this book. There's a lot of talk about like decay of organic materials, like not bodies, but like rotting fruit, rotting plants, like things that are rotting. Like there's a lot of talk about that and a lot of descriptions of that, like mold and mildew and like oozing, and it's actually like turning my stomach a little bit just talking about it. So I just want to like give you that warning. If that's something that would like totally freak you out or gross you out, you won't like this book. But the author, like I said, her descriptions are just so lush and dark. And I really enjoyed it. So if you're like into dark, creepy goth stuff, you would love this book. And you should read it. All right, the last book I read Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jenny Lawson. I read it as an ebook from the library. I will show you a picture of the cover here. So Jenny Lawson is, she writes memoir, like nonfiction, and she's a humorist, so she writes funny books. I haven't read this yet. This is her newest book, Broken in the Best Possible Way. But Let's Pretend This Never Happened is actually her first book. And so she was basically like a blogger, and she became popular and then like got a book deal. But she's my friend Andrea, Stitchy Bookworm. I talk about her every video when I'm talking about books, of course, because we're always like buddy reading things together. But Andrea was like, oh my God, she's so funny. Like you definitely need to check her out. And I was laughing with Andrea because I had seen her books around, but I was getting her confused with Rachel Hollis, that other white lady who writes nonfiction books. And she writes those books that are like, girl, wash your face or something. Like, I don't know. She's like, I haven't read them, but like, she's basically like the basic white vanilla, like, chick that, like, all the basic bitches you went to school with are like, I love this book from Rachel Hollis. I like totally was feeling it. And it was just like not my vibe at all. And I was getting these two mixed up. So I kept like passing by these books. And then Andrea was like, no. Totally not the same people. Totally not the same vibe. Like you need to read Jenny Lawson. So she writes like, you know, these are like, she tells you stories about like growing up and her life, but like they're dark and twisted. She's super messed up. Like she's open about her struggles with mental illness and her anxiety and her complete social awkwardness. And so the stories are just hilarious because she had this very unconventional upbringing. She grew up in Texas, like dirt poor. Her parents were like total oddballs. Her dad was a taxidermist and would bring home like all these like wild animals, like raccoons and goats and chickens and stuff. Like were always like in her house, like living with them. And they were just poor. Like they had no money. So they had to like make do in weird ways. And so it's basically like the first book, Let's Pretend This Never Happened, is mostly about her childhood and then like college years. So I very much enjoyed her book. She is laugh out loud hilarious, and she is just like unabashedly like herself. Admits to things that you probably shouldn't admit to or own up to, but she's like, yep, that's me. So I actually really very much enjoyed her first book. I am going to try to get the second book from the library and then read her third book. You don't have to read them in order, is my understanding. At least that's Andrea's read all three, and she's like, no, you don't have to read them in any kind of order. They're not like you know, chronological or anything. But I think I'm just going to, just because, why not? So I'm probably going to get the second book, which is called, I can't remember, what is the second book called? Furiously Happy. So I think I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to read Broken. But yeah, those were all the books I read. That's pretty typical for me. I usually get 4 or 5 books in between videos. So that's all the book talk. I think that was enough, right? That's all I've got today. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. I know some of you did. Some of you tell me you stay till the very end. So thanks for watching if you did. And if you aren't listening to this because you left like half an hour ago, that's fine too. I will see you next time. Bye.